Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Why Your Job Adverts Are Broken and How to Fix Them. My name is Catherine Newbury and I'm Ciphyr's Content Marketing Editor. With me today is Adrian McDonough, founder of recruitment experts EasyWeb. Welcome Adrian, it's great to have you with us today.
Hi Catherine, nice to be here.
If you don't know Ciphr, we are a leading UK provider of HR, recruitment and learning software that helps organisations to attract, engage and retain their workforces more effectively. Our solutions cover the entire employee lifecycle, from attraction and recruitment through to engagement, development, management, reward and retention. If you'd like to find out more about Ciphr's solutions, you can opt in to hear from us via the survey at the end of the webinar or email us using the address that's on your screen right now. EasyWeb is one of our strategic Ciphr Connect partners. It offers a range of recruitment-related products and services, which Adrian will explain more about in a few moments. This webinar should last around 45 minutes, with about half an hour from us and then time at the end to answer your questions. Do send in your questions, comments and queries during the broadcast. You should see a small control panel on your screen. Just hit the orange arrow button to open the messaging window. If you miss anything or have to leave the broadcast at any time, not to worry, everyone who has registered will receive a link shortly after this broadcast ends to an on-demand version you can watch at any time or share with your colleagues if you think they'll be interested. Okay, I'm now just going to hand over to Adrian, so bear with us while we change control over. Okay, Adrian, we can see your screen. We're good to go.
Can you hear me okay, Catherine?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry, I think I had it on mute. Rookie error. So I was briefly saying that, EasyWeb's focus is with probably similar to Ciphr, everyday organisations. So what we call sort of mid-market, people with a few hundred staff, maybe to a few thousand staff, but not necessarily the huge multinationals. And obviously a focus of today's session will be, I suppose, giving you lots of easy tips that are easy to do, low cost, low time, because we understand that customers in this sort of market segment don't have a lot of time and capacity and budget. So that'll be the focus. And we have our why. So what we've done the Simon Sinek journey, focus on finding your why, our mission for the business and why we exist. And our reason to exist is to help everyday organizations to compete for talent with the big brands without getting ripped off. So that's everything we do is focused around that. And how we do it in simple terms, we help organizations to grow by telling their story. So we help organizations to tell their story, attracting the right talent and delivering great candidate experiences. So I'll show you what that means in real terms now. We do lots of free training events, obviously similar to Ciphr. So we've done events with Ciphr, and this is, I think, our first time invited onto an event with Ciphr, which is great. So we both obviously believe in helping organizations to get where they need to get to. So we do lots of stuff around employer brand and Glassdoor, obviously very focused around online recruitment. We do advertising, so companies give us vacancies, we post our adverts across all the major job boards, we help them to craft those adverts and tell their story. We build careers pages and that side of things, and obviously we have our applicant tracking system, and we hope that delivers a good candidate experience. So that's in simple terms what we do. I think we're going to start, Catherine, with a quick poll, and I think before you pop it up, I want to just really lay out this question. So we're going to have a look in a second about maybe making your job adverts stand out a bit from the crowd, maybe talking to candidates. So they're not the standardized job advert where it just simply says, we're recruiting for a project manager, this is what it's paying, these are the responsibilities, these are the essential skills, these are the desirable skills, and away you go. So I'm interested to see how many of you have looked at your job adverts maybe and tried to maybe make them stand out a bit, maybe go down a different route. So over to you, Catherine, I'll let you run the poll.
Thanks, Adrian. So as he mentioned, our first poll is, do your job adverts stand out? Select one of the options that you see on your screen here. Not really, you're not sure, or yes, you make an effort to stand out from the crowd. So Adrian, you mentioned that you'd like to see that some of the people on our broadcast today have started work on this area. Do you think that's going to be sort of a majority of people are going to be working on that?
Yeah, without being rude to you might have some fantastic, insightful, engaged people on your webinar. But as a whole, when we look at job boards generally, it's very much, what we call the Ronseal test. It does exactly what it says on the tin, which is important because you want to make sure your advert's labeled correctly so people can understand, let's say that you're recruiting for a project manager, but that's only really the very, very basics. it's not really appealing to anyone or talking to anyone or standing out from the crowd. So vast majority, I'd say at least 9 out of 10 adverts that I see on the web on job boards are pretty straightforward, formulaic, and I don't wish to be rude to anyone on that. And that actually includes some of the campaigns we're running for our customers as well, which is why we're now embracing this change and trying to encourage our customers to say, look, you've given us an advert, we've tried to write it in a different style for you. What do you think to this? So yeah, but we'll see. Are you still with me, Catherine? It's gone very quiet.
Yeah, sorry. So we have about 20% of people saying they are making an effort to stand out from the crowd, about 45% of people saying they're not really on that journey yet. So hopefully you will be able to pick up some great tips from today's webinar. Okay,
great. Well, and like I say, I started my business 1 year outside of university, so I've never really worked for a big company. So I understand bringing about some of this change. Certainly, the bigger you go as an organisation can be more challenging. So we will see. So let's have a look at, we've done those options. So let's begin. So here's some adverts, lovely creative adverts, O2 Guru, Wine Wizard, and Could You Be Our Next Care Hero? These individuals who wrote these adverts, made an effort to change them and made an effort to stand out from the crowd, but they're missing out on the very fundamentals of, no one's going to search for Wine Wizard. Interesting, but I grabbed all these from Reed just by chance. You can actually see on them, if you can see, be one of the first 10 applicants. I didn't even notice that while I was grabbing the adverts, but they all have that tag on them, which shows, because Reed will show to job seekers how, approximately how busy this advert has been in regards to applicants. And none of these adverts are busy, including the one with, from the major brand of, O2 Telefonica. And my view is, job boards are driven by keywords. So the very first bit, you need to make sure your adverts are found. So we are going back to the basics and sort of saying, don't go too crazy, particularly with job titles, because you need your advert to be found. So if the Wine Wizard is actually a wine buyer, you sort of need to call it a wine buyer. And then if there's something else you can put onto the end of that title, then great. So, could be you're going to say, Wine Wizard working for Times 100 best employer or something. That's fine, but you need to make sure the keywords are in there at the very least, because otherwise you've got a fantastic advert. You can show it to your colleagues, they'll nod and they'll pat you on the back, but no one's going to see it and no one's going to apply. So that's what we call sort of the Ron Seal test. So if any of you remember Ron Seal, when they used to advertise on the TV, does exactly what it says on the tin. It's about getting the basics down there. So, instead of a head people ninja, to use an extreme example, you might call it HR manager. Interestingly, there's no huge difference between calling it people manager to HR manager on most job boards, because most job boards now use synonyms, so they group words together, and you would be able to see that, if you put a search in for people manager in Milton Keynes, and then the same HR manager Milton Keynes, you would probably see the same results. But it's always worth checking that out if, for example, your organization likes to use specific job titles and would much prefer to use, let's say, a term like people manager as opposed to HR manager. So you can, use those synonyms to give you a bit more creativity, but you want to make sure that they're still functioning and working and being used by the given job board that you're using. So, location fields, there's very much a set area on location. So I'm more talking generally if you're putting, you want to be, it's Richmond on Thames, not a London borough flush with sweeping parks, golf courses, national trust properties and pretty riverside pubs. I'm sure Richmond on Thames is that, but you can't really pitch it. You've got to just say what it is. Now, once you've said what it is, there are certain roles, and you'll have certain roles where you've got the capacity and time to get more creative. So I train about 1,000 people a year on my workshops and webinars, and some of them, they give me their numbers and they're like, well, I have 65 live roles and it's just me. Now that individual is unlikely to get a new individual vacancy and get very creative every time. The capacity and the time simply isn't there. However, if you've got an individual role that's quite key, imagine like you run a call center, and that's, it's one advert that's very key. You may have 2 or 3 different variations of it perhaps, but you can spend some time on that because it's obviously maybe 80–90% of your recruitment would fall under that area. So yeah, at that point you can put away, the fence painting and you can get creative. And what I want to focus on, is these adverts need to be written for the candidate. So that's where we need to get our head in the mindset of, You'll know your candidates better than anyone. So, you know, you're speaking to those candidates, you know what drives them. You can see the people you've hired. They'll be telling you why, you know, you should always be quizzing people, new hires, as to, you know, what other offers they turned down, what really was it that made them choose your organization, what was their thinking, what were their conversations with their family like and loved ones, you know, to make that decision. It starts to give you, you know, a real good insight in regards to what's driving them, and you can tailor your, obviously, your adverts around that. But what I want to focus on, you know, if we look at this standout question and say, look, do your adverts stand out? We could also have framed it, do your adverts, you know, talk to candidates, attempt to, you know, reach out to candidates and communicate to them in a way that if they saw like 5 adverts from 5 law firms and yours was there, would they remember yours? You know, if they were all advertising for the same thing, would it stand out? So one of the, you know, it's a simple strategy for all advertising, all advertisers out there, you know, is to talk to the buyer. So the language should all be about you. You know, you should be using you. You shouldn't be saying, we are looking to recruit XYZ. It should be, you know, you could be joining this fantastic company and, you know, and in this fantastic role that we have of X, you know. I'll show you some specific examples of it. You're going to want to evidence your claims as well. There's an awful lot of research out there that says people, you know, describe themselves the same way. Candidates are not very believing. You know, there's plenty of, you know, terrible companies on Glassdoor. I know of one personally at the moment who a friend of mine for a friend of mine highlighted, you know, someone we know, their Glassdoor page, and he's a bit of a tyrant, very old school, and basically no one wants to work for him. Now, when he writes his adverts, he's not going to write, I'm a tyrant and no one wants to work for me, and it's a very stressful environment, and, you know, apparently people are crying every day at their desk. He's not going to write that. So, and equally, the middling companies that don't necessarily make much of an effort, and it's a bit, oh, you know, we're going backwards slightly, and, you know, it's not spectacular here, but there's nothing really exciting going on here. They're not going to write that in their adverts either, are they? So, you know, everyone's putting on their best, you know, their best impressions. Candidates know that, and many candidates will take it with a pinch of salt, your claims. So if you can evidence them, and by evidence, and I mean, could be, you know, you're referring to, you know, your Glassdoor rating. Could be you're referring to an award you've won. Could be you're referring to a specific number. Like if you're saying we're a growing business, well, maybe quote that. You know, if you say people love working here, you might be quoting a stat from your employee engagement survey result and say like 92% of our staff said they love working at this company. Yeah. So try, if possible, when you make big claims that are important, that you can back them up. You don't have to back up every single claim, but if you can back up the big ones, then I think that will give credibility to your advert. So, you know, nice simple example there. You'll be joining an organization with great culture who are recently confirmed as a Sunday Times 100 best companies to work for. So yeah, so that bodes really well, I think. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. This is Honest Burgers. I'm a big fan of Honest Burgers. Ollie, the recruitment manager there, they're not actually, you know, we don't do any business of Honest Burgers. In fact, I've spent more money with Honest Burgers than they've ever spent with my company, and I can recommend their product on that front. But from a recruitment perspective, they're very good, I think. They've got a very good recruitment manager there. They're quite open to sort of trying new things, which I think is, you know, that alone makes them stand out. But with their adverts, I mean, I've got the links to their careers page, so you can check out all of their adverts in good depth afterwards if you wish. But here's just a couple of excerpts. So personality, no uniform, tattoos are cool, your hairstyle is yours, not ours. Basically, we don't want to change who you are because we think the best hospitality comes from people who can be themselves and show customers their personality. Now, knowing Honest Burger a reasonable amount, that shines through as authentic. There's no point them putting that out there and then you turn up for work in, you know, one of their restaurants and actually the manager in that restaurant has a different view about hairstyle and tattoos and people being themselves. You know, they're very much, you know, focused on being authentic, recruiting, you know, outgoing personalities. That's what they want in their organization, and letting them be themselves. I think their benefits also stand out. And one of my tips would definitely be, think about at least trying to have one benefit that is very different. Okay, could be, I mean, it's got to be in keeping with your business. So if your business is a bit wacky and out there, you might have some sort of wacky and out there benefit. I don't know what that could be. If you're a bit more you know, a bit more straight, let's say, then you must have a more formal benefit. But try something that's a bit different, you know. So the benefit I love with them is bring up to 4 mates with free burgers once a month. I think that just says, share your employer, showcase from their perspective, you're showing off your employer to them, showing how proud you are to work there as well. So, and I suspect sometimes some of those people who come in and the mates there might, see it's a nice company, nice culture, could be an employee referral opportunity as well, perhaps. So other things down there are maybe a bit more standard, like all cash and card tips are shared equally, but I suppose it's important to get their values across as an organization. And the extra day's holiday to take off on your birthday, we have half a day holiday off on your birthday here at EasyWeb. So, this is not uniform, but it's a common benefit. But if you can have a slightly quirky one, that once again, it makes you stand out. People remember, and people will read into something there. Bring up the 4 mates for burgers, they'll read into that, you're sort of really open and friendly organization, hopefully. Now, the alternative for this is quite a famous advert, got a lot of attention from social media when it came out. You can't read it, unfortunately. I have put the link in the notes, you better read it. I've got some excerpts. They're attempting the same thing. In the hospitality business, this is Radisson, one of their brands called Radisson Red, which is a major hotel chain. And now my view is this was written by an advertising firm. This is my guess, I don't know that as a fact. But you can see how it comes across. It's we connect with that ageless millennial mindset. We believe that hotels can enhance their world via art, music, fashion, and a distinctive connection. Radisson Red sees things differently. We name things differently. We don't have staff, we have creatives, and managers equals leads. I think that's just generally confusing and inauthentic, but the pièce de résistance, the best one, is the phone rings, reservation, you've got it, and now you're flipping an omelette, catch it, this place is alive and you'll love it, smile, photo. It's basically cringeworthy. So this is like what happens when you aim to stand out, but you're just not being authentic or real. And I think one of the advantages, these mid-market companies, 65 staff big, it's much easier for us to find our authentic than it is for a huge brand. If that was Virgin, if Virgin a hotel chain, Virgin's brand, you may not have thought about it much, but they're all about disrupting the market. And it comes in and competes with British Airways. Virgin Coca-Cola comes in, tries to compete with Coke and Pepsi. That actually didn't work out in that case. But when they did it, it's all about coming in and being different and being disruptive. So if they come out as a very, very big organization and say, we're different, we see things differently, they perhaps have the backstory and the authenticness to actually push that through and for it to be believable. Whereas I think sometimes when people want to see things differently, but really when they, be honest with themselves, they are a bit more of a corporate, then this is the end result that can happen, I suspect. Like I say, I don't know Radisson Red intimately to know. Maybe they are, a radical company who believes in the ageless millennial mindset. But I'm like you, I guess many of you guys who read this, deeply skeptical on that. So yeah, that's just a couple of ideas on how to think about things and how to maybe phrase things for candidates, but maybe not go, but stay true to who you are. I think that's really, really important as well, because there's nothing worse than selling, this wonderful culture, whatever it is you're selling, because you would love the business to be like that. And you've seen other businesses who've done it and it's fantastic. And but if you're honest with yourself, your organization may not be, wonderfully open and embracing of tattoos and all these things you might personally embrace. It's got to make sure that obviously it meets with what the day-to-day experience is within the company. And the bigger you get, actually, the harder it is to understand what the day-to-day experience is within that company, because the experience in Glasgow hotel could be different to the experience in the Southampton hotel, and then the experience in head office could be different once again. But I guess you get my point by now. I'll briefly read you. This is a recruitment consultant advert that we've put out at EasyWeb, just to show you how we do it. We want to show that we are practicing what we preach. You probably can't read it, it's quite small, so I'll read the first couple of lines and the bottom couple of lines. Would you like to join a small yet exceptionally brilliant recruitment team in a lovely converted office barns, overlooking some fluffy sheep, lots of them skipping about, more of them in the spring? Okay, and then we also put in things like the office atmosphere is very relaxed, we're all grown-ups here and do what's needed to bring the revenue in. we're keeping it nice and fun. So if you have a happy, buzzy feeling when you find a candidate and a brilliant new job, if you're exceptionally good at getting on famous with your clients, and if you love the variety of working in lots of different sectors, then we think you'll feel right at home here. So it's very much obviously speaking to the candidate directly, and also our company culture is quite relaxed. You know, we don't wear suits to the office. That sort of is reflected also in our company language and our authentic voice. You can see that coming through hopefully as well. And also I think the best job adverts, you know, entertain a little bit as well. Yeah, you want to inform the candidate what the details are, but if you can, you know, put a smile on their face while they're reading your advert because you've said something half funny, then I think, you know, that goes a long way, I think. So, but the title is for mobile friendly job adverts. The point I'm making here as well is that with mobile now, and the vast majority of candidates, probably about 60%, it will vary from organisation to organisation, depending on the, you know, the age demographics and things of who you're recruiting. But the vast majority of candidates will be seeing your adverts on a mobile device, and that's because a lot of job adverts now are delivered by email alerts from job boards and things like this. Or maybe mobile apps, so they're seeing it on a mobile device. That alone means you really have to think about how long the advert is. So what we're showing you there is probably just about as long as we want it, no longer. So just bear that in mind. And obviously job titles being short as well. If job titles are really long, then that can also be less efficient on a mobile. So yeah, and a key thing, I mean, remove the obvious. We're looking on this advert for an experienced recruitment consultant. So there's things we want to tell them that are not obvious. So that the fact that they're working across multiple sectors, that may not be obvious to them. So we've mentioned that in there. But we don't need to tell them what the job of a recruitment consultant is. We don't need to list out, for example, the responsibilities of the role, because that's obvious. They're a recruitment consultant. They'll know what that is. Doesn't mean we can't send them a person spec after they apply, so they can see everything in detail. That's probably good practice. But remember, this is an advert. It's not a, you know, it's not a job specification. Okay, so once you've done your advert, you might want to also be thinking about, you know, providing some additional content. You know, what else is going to convince these candidates to apply? Many of the people I speak to in my workshop, we normally go around the room at the start of the session, and I say, look, what are your recruitment challenges? You know, most people, their challenges are, you know, these harder to find passive candidates, you know, that more in demand, and they are clearly going to be the more discerning candidates. So they're the ones that are going to be wanting to do their research before they apply. You know, if they've never heard of your organisation, and that probably includes, say, 80–90% of the candidates that we hire at EasyWeb, the opportunity you have is the chance to tell them something and make it easy for them to find out interesting and informative information about your business. And most candidates will be willing to go on that journey with you if it's not too complicated, if it's not too frustrating. If it is painful and boring and it's just a big slab of text on your, they're gonna probably get bored and leave. Quick stat: 70% of candidates would not apply to a role without researching first. That number seems a bit high for me, so I'm never sure how commercial market research is done. But, you know, it could always be slightly swayed a little bit. They could have targeted certain types of roles or something, I don't know. But I'd still say it's going to be a high number. And certainly these more discerning candidates, I always think there's part of the market where they're just after a job, and that's perfectly fine. When I was at university, I would have just wanted a job. I would have wanted something that was part-time, local to my university, you know, paid a reasonable salary, but I didn't have huge expectations, you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, that was what I was looking for, a job. How much did I really research the organisation? Not a lot. And when I left university and started looking for a career, well, then that would change. So, you know, the first places people go to research you is your website. And that's normally pretty disastrous from a candidate perspective. For companies of a few hundred staff, when you get to maybe a few thousand staff, maybe there's a few more resources there, and you're hiring more people, you've maybe put more effort in. Instead of it just being one page here, like on this example, maybe you've got, you know, several pages going through all the different aspects of benefits and different types of roles and testimonials from current employees and stuff like this. But for many organizations that are a few hundred staff, it's like this. And I don't use this example from a solicitor's firm as like, this is terrible. I'm using this as, this is pretty much standard, and it's not horrendous, but doesn't do much to really, convince you to apply, I don't think. It's a big lump of text. Most of the text, when you read it, is pretty standardized. Nothing is really talking to the candidate or standing out massively, I don't think. They're not putting their best foot forward, I don't think. The most important thing missing here is images. The one thing that starts you emotionally thinking about what it would be like to work in an organization or work with certain people is seeing images of them. Obviously, images are far more powerful than text in that regard. So yeah, build some images into this. So I'm a big fan on the adverts are great. They're going to get you the candidate's attention, hopefully. But when they come to check out your business, if they don't know your business, what are they going to see? They're going to go to your website, and that's going to be one of their challenges, certainly. So have a think about that and think about what you can do to improve it. Most of you could probably improve your website pretty quickly. You don't need a professional photographer to go around the office taking perfect photos. You'll probably find you're able to take some perfectly good photos yourself with not a lot of effort. Or you might even find there's a member of your staff that is a part-time photographer as a hobby. Would happily bring their camera in and take some photos of their colleagues and stuff like this. So getting photos shouldn't really be a big challenge. Okay, so here's a few ideas. Real photos of real employees, like this example here. I don't know for a fact they're real employees, but they look real, and that's important. Obviously, we want them to be, diverse. You don't just want all white males, for example. I'm pretty sure you guys will be too savvy to fall into that trap. Hopefully, simple things like gathering quotes and testimonials from existing employees. I haven't mentioned it, but every photo you see there's 4 people on that page. They're all smiling. Well, that's quite important, but sometimes it can be overlooked. So nice pictures of people who look happy and normal and friendly. That's always a bonus. I like this example, and we see this type of thing more. This example from Trustly, where they've got their values, and it's very visual. It's very easy to read. They've got their perks, once again, nice and visual, easy to sort of read. You can go through it. So it sort of encourages the candidate just to scroll through in a light way where it isn't heavy reading, and hopefully they'll want to scroll down. And then the piece we're going to talk about in a bit, they've got this follow at Trustly on Instagram, and that's them telling their organization's story and showing what they're all about and showing what they're up to. And now that channel could be lots of different aspects to it. It could be about trying to win customers, but equally, clearly the fact that it's on their careers page shows that it's also about very much telling their story with the aim of encouraging new employees to apply. So yeah, so all of these links are in the appendix. You can go check out these companies. Like I said, I don't think they're phenomenal. I just think they're good examples that you could probably easily look to borrow some of these ideas yourself. I'm sure most of the ideas that these guys have had as well were borrowed from other places as well. So this is what I want to talk about as well. It's one of my big things. I do a webinar solely on this. So you're welcome to reach out to me if you want the webinar recording for doing the social media piece, which we call telling your story, or really it's about pulling back the curtain and showing candidates what life is like within your business. So it's not about, as Gary Vaynerchuk, if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a bit Marmite. Some people love him, some people don't. He's a bit of a expert, but he talks about documenting and not creating. And I think that's a really key thing in this example, because what we're talking about here is not trying to create amazing updates showing what's going on in your business. We're just talking about taking updates of the stuff that happens as it happens. It has to be amazing. If it's all amazing, you're probably setting yourself up for a fall, because you're presenting this wonderful story that maybe can't be backed up from day-to-day reality. So we do this at EasyWeb. We've got a page called Life at EasyWeb. It's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It'll also be on LinkedIn shortly as well. And we're just there doing updates, showing what goes on at EasyWeb. We'll show pictures of our staff getting training on GDPR, because it's a fairly everyday, mundane picture, but it also says we're investing in training in our staff. So there's nice, simple ways to do this, and it is very powerful, because like I said at the very beginning about evidencing your claims, well, as much as you say we're a great company, people like working here, we look after our staff, it's a great team we have here, Nothing says that better. You can put all of that information on your website. You can put testimonials from your staff on your website, but nothing says it better for me than an actual social media page that you can direct prospective applicants to, where it shows that you're a good employer, shows that you've been looking after your staff. Within the last few weeks, it shows that things have been going on and lots of interesting stuff's been happening there. But it's a very different strategy than normal social media marketing's focused on. I can't really go into it in a lot of depth here, but it's not about, I could argue, and I genuinely do believe, it's really the primary purpose is not about building followers. It's not about even building engagement. Because if you're telling this story, like, we have our International Day of Happiness here, and we've done some cakes and stuff, you don't expect people from outside the business to be commenting on that, liking it and retweeting it. Probably just, it's your business's story. It's life at Redgate, essentially, telling their story. So it doesn't really interest many people who don't work in the business. It will only interest current employees, friends and family of current employees, in my eyes, and prospective employees. And that last one's the key one. So we use this at EasyWeb, and we measure it, and we give it out to every candidate coming to interview, and we ask them at interview, did you have a chance to look at our social media? What can you remember about it? And 80% of the candidates coming to interview of us can remember our social media. So it is a very tangible, it's not just a fluffy thing. We think it has a great effect, which is hard to measure, but we know that we can record how many people can remember it, which is actually impressive. And for that, we're doing about 3 or 4 updates a month. So from an input-output perspective, this works really well. Okay, so the case for some evidence. So I used this a fair few times. This is, I was doing a talk, and I was looking for one word that might be overused in job adverts. And this is the very first one that I plugged into the job boards that I was testing, and it come out with a big victory for me straight away. So passionate. So just an example here, almost 44,000 adverts on Reed that are from direct employers. We're filtering out the agency adverts. We can see that almost 12,500 or 29% contain the word passionate or passion. So this is why I talk about evidence in your claims, because if everyone's talking about themselves being we're passionate about web design as an organization, we're passionate about social care, even talking to candidates, because the other alternative would be saying we're looking for someone who's passionate about, maybe you need to be passionate, you need to be passionate about web design. Candidates are reading this word, they're reading this word all the time. It means nothing to them when they see it. It probably just means that they have a small groan inside and when these organizations using this word. Undoubtedly, with the numbers we've got on this webinar, some of you will be using this term. Some of you may even have it in your company values. And I know it might move, but I would remove it, because although it's a great word, everyone uses it now, to the point where it just means nothing. So be very mindful of how you present yourself, the words you use, and how popular they are. You can do this test as well. And any other words anywhere near as extreme as this, but you can do exactly the same test using major job boards as a research base, and say, look, we also think we are X or transparent or whatever else those words are you want to use for your organization, and see how popular they are coming through and whether they're overused. So just be mindful of that. Okay, and then we've got Glassdoor as well. So on the Glassdoor side, this is a key thing. People will be checking out your company on Glassdoor once they found your adverts. They'll be thinking about that. That's something you need to be, mindful of. Get your strategy together. Make sure you're managing it. I think there's 2 sides to it. On the one side, there's things you can do to have a plan. And I also run a webinar and a workshop on Glassdoor, telling you how to set up your page and how to encourage more positive reviews, how to manage positive and negative reviews, how to reply to them. So that's the one side of things, but obviously on the flip side of it, it is giving you feedback, and the organization should be aware of that, thinking about it and starting to address some of those things. Because if, let's say, your organization has a terrible work-life balance, or maybe even like this friend of a friend that I know, who's the CEO is a complete tyrant, well, that might have been fine 10 years ago. He might have been able to run his company. You wouldn't have found out until you joined and a couple of months later. So that was less of an effect to him. Now it almost means that he really, really struggles to recruit. his industry as well, Glassdoor is very prominent. If it's not prominent yet in your industry, it's probably gathering prominence. So yeah, you've got to be mindful of, and it might mean that, you know, some difficult decisions around work-life balance and management styles and culture, you know, some big issues need to be dealt with. Otherwise, it's going to severely impact your ability to recruit, unfortunately, I think. Okay. Yeah, and I think on the Glassdoor side as well, just talking more generally in regards to adverts, no one's mentioning Glassdoor in their adverts. You know, there's the equivalent on Reed, and very few people mention it. Whereas, you know, lots of candidates are aware of it, not all of them, but, you know, even the ones that are not aware of it, if they checked it out, they would understand pretty fast what it was. Oh yeah, this is like the employees' version of Trustpilot or TripAdvisor, but companies are getting reviewed. So once they found the website, even if it's their first time, they would quickly understand the purpose of it. But very few adverts really reference Glassdoor, and I think they're missing a trick there, because plenty of people, I think the number for me is 4. If your rating is 4 or above, I mean, there's plenty of good companies having a 3.8 and a 3.9, and that's actually still a pretty good score. But because it starts with a 4, I just think 4 becomes a bit of a benchmark. If you've got a Glassdoor rating of a 4, or you're close and you could maybe push on and get that with a bit of extra effort and some good ideas maybe from my other webinar, then that could be a real caveat, and you should use that. Not enough people, the people that reach that land of 4 on Glassdoor, fair play to them. They've worked hard. They've hopefully they set out at the beginning with just some great values and they want to look after their employees, and now they're reaping the benefits from it. But the one thing they haven't then done in the vast majority of cases is they haven't really pushed out and then started saying, hey, this is how well we're rated. So just showing you an example. I mean, on the left-hand side there, the hotel, you know, you sort of expect, you know, many hotels will show you their TripAdvisor awards. They'll show you their ratings. You know, even though this is obviously a very high-class hotel, the sort of thing that I rarely ever get the chance to stay in. So, you know, you'll see it's 4.8 out of 5. They're still really selling you, you know, yeah, we are fantastically highly rated. On the right-hand side is a company called GBG Group. I don't know them, but their website is very prominent on their Glassdoor. Glassdoor sits right front and center. They've got a 4.1, and they make sure you know about it. And I like I said, I meet lots of people in my workshops who have, you know, very strong Glassdoor ratings, and I say, is it very obviously positioned on your website? And they're like, no. So they're missing a trick. So get out there, promote it. We also include it in every interview email we send out. We say, here's our Glassdoor page, you can check us out. I think we're on about 4.2. And we also put our employee engagement survey, because we publish our results publicly from our employee engagement survey. So we also encourage interview applicants to go and check out that as well. Okay, so last but not least, I think we're moving into the application process. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about here is really about maybe making the application process easier, making it easier on the candidate. And I'm going to show you why I think candidates are sort of demanding it, and the job boards are now accommodating that. But as a quick sort of temperature check, Catherine, if you're still with us, I just want to find out how people feel maybe about the idea of maybe making their application process easier, as in shorter, getting less information. So let's maybe test the water with that, Catherine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still here. I just wanted to chip in and apologise for the sound problems that some of you might have been having. I think there are some problems with the connection, so apologies for that. We're just going to go into the second poll now. How do you feel about making your application process easier? Probably shortening it, collecting less information, as Adrian mentioned. Select one of the options here. You're not able to change the process. You don't want to change the process. You would like to simplify the process for some roles, or you would like to simplify the process for all roles. Adrian, in your experience of talking to HR and recruitment professionals, what are their general views about collecting less information at application?
It's definitely changing. I mean, having done training for 10 years, I think back in the day, at the start of that, it was very much, well, you know, this is who we are. People should want to, you know, understand that and should want to apply here. You know, even the companies without a huge brand behind them, you know, if Mercedes-Benz said that, then you sort of understand where that comes from maybe. but there's other organizations who you've never heard of, and they were saying the same thing. You know, people should really want to work here. They should know that. They should understand that. If people are not interested enough to complete a 10-minute, 15-minute process, they're probably not the candidates we want. That was the old school way of thinking. I think now what people understand are there obviously are more jobs on the market now than ever before, but I don't think that's the huge change. I think the huge change is it's much easier to find those jobs. You know, those jobs will come to you. You know, sites like Indeed are aggregating all the jobs and putting them in one place. So if you're a HR manager in Milton Keynes looking for a new job, you know, finding all those jobs is easy. And then your challenge is, wow, isn't there a lot of jobs? Which ones do I want to apply to? Because I can't apply to all of them.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for that. So just going to close the poll now and share the results. So it seems among the people we're speaking to, there is an appetite for simplification. So that's good news. I'm going to throw back to Adrian now, and he will talk to you a little bit more about simplifying that process.
Okay, so the people that are yet to be convinced, hopefully stay with me. I might change your mind, I might not. And what I'm going to show you as well is probably going to upset some people, not in a bad way, because it will bring more challenge. Ultimately, this brings more challenges to the recruitment and HR teams. So I totally understand that, but I'm just going to talk to you about what the market's doing. So what is the market doing? So a lot of candidates are demanding sort of, or would like, slicker application processes. So, you know, trying to remove register with us and just maybe be able to make an application, just apply, removing highly complex passwords and the 15-page application forms, and hopefully having a clear vision at the start so you can see, you know, well, how much work is involved. So you really need to think about every question on your application purpose. Think of it like you're an e-commerce manager and someone's going to buy something from your website. Every single question you ask them is going to increase the failure rate, you know, that people don't complete the process. So just bear that in mind. I think, do I really need this information? Do we need it at this part of the process? And be fair about that. So okay, I'll zip past that one. So are candidates getting lazy? And I say that very tongue-in-cheek. You know, I don't think candidates are getting lazy, although some are. But you know, the reality is for most of us today is we can hire a cab on Uber nice and quickly. We can book a pizza or whatever quick. Everything's quicker because of our mobile devices, perhaps these days. But none of us feel like we have more time. You know, the working day isn't stretched beyond 9 to 5. Everyone's just so busy. So candidates are in that same boat as well. So you will see, I'm just going to do a quick review of, you know, job boards. And well, I mean, LinkedIn Jobs is essentially a job board. They have their Easy Apply where you can apply with your LinkedIn profile, and jobs that are using that get far, far more applications than the alternative. The alternative is redirect and apply on company website. And when a candidate sees that, they know that that's going to be, even if you're using a great system like Ciphrs iRecruiter or EasyWeb ATS, then fantastic. But the problem you also have is that when people see that button and it says redirect and apply on company website, they think, oh, that's going to be horrendous, because that's what their past experience has been, because most ATS systems are pretty horrendous with that. So Reed recently launched this Easy Apply, and it changed my mind on a lot of stuff. It really opened my eyes to where this market was going. Obviously, they've got millions of candidates coming to their website. They're monitoring everything they do. But this also brings about some challenges to them. So Easy Apply basically means you can apply in 2 clicks to that role. Total Jobs has had a 1-click apply function once you're a signed up user, and they've had that for years. So that didn't necessarily, what the big difference with Easy Apply was that they were highlighting this job as easy to apply to. So at that point, it draws in more attention. I don't know the facts because Reed will never confirm it, but their algorithm of where the jobs list is likely to be factored into whether people are clicking and applying. So if this is an example for an analyst role, if it's getting more clicks because it says Easy Apply, which it will do, then you would imagine that will move up the list of results for the term analyst in London. So then it gets even more. So you sort of see how it's a sort of, it just keeps gathering. So Easy Apply for you as a recruiter might mean they're not completing your application process. It means that you're just getting basic details. You know, you're getting the, hopefully you're getting it into your ATS. That is possible still instead of an email, but it might mean that you're just getting, you know, expected salary from when they registered with Reed, their CV, you know, their address, their contact details, but they haven't answered all your vacancy specific questions and all the other things you ask them for. So that's a compromise. And on a job by job basis, what I think organizations should be doing is saying, well, this role is a highly challenging role for us to recruit. We're not going to get many applicants. Let's make it easy apply. Now, what Indeed does is very similar, and I know Ciphr have this integration with Indeed, or something very similar. They have an integration with Indeed coming, I believe. Catherine can mention that in a second to you. We've got an integration with Indeed. I know how ours works intimately, obviously, but the key thing where, like I said, both ourselves and Ciphr are focused is that the adverts come up and you can see apply with your Indeed CV. Or on a mobile device, it says easily apply on your mobile, and that encourages candidates to apply. And then when they click on that advert, it will say apply with Indeed. Yeah. Alternatively, if you haven't got that integration and you're being redirected to apply via the applicant tracking system on someone's website, then what it says is apply on company website. And even that label, candidates just don't click on it. So when we turned this on, we saw a 4 times increase, 400% increase in applications. And what we were doing, there's 2 things that happened, just to be clear on what I'm explaining here, is our adverts started having this apply with your Indeed CV icon with them, and it would say apply on Indeed when you clicked into the advert. And the application process happens on Indeed. Okay, so they're no longer redirected off. All of the questions they would ask on the form, it was the same form they were completing on Indeed, but by turning it on and making and removing ourselves of the stigma of being able to say, oh, you have to redirect to apply, then actually we increased applications considerably for our clients. So it's a huge thing if Indeed's a key thing for you. 400% increase could actually be negative as well. So you might want to be thinking about, I mean, we're still able to ask vacancy specific questions here and key things like that. So you need to really think about, well, I'm going to get a big response now, perhaps. I really need to ask some quite taxing questions so it can help me filter through a big response quite quickly and easily, hopefully. And the difference with Indeed as well, which is really, really interesting, on the mobile device, you can filter out jobs where you're being asked to apply on an ATS outside of Indeed. So Indeed just lets the candidate see jobs that are easy to apply to. And that obviously means, good things for those who are integrated and bad things for those who are looking to redirect. So there's an example. So we have the same process, it just happens on Indeed. So yeah, that's something I think that's my last question. Yeah, so that's, I suppose, the final thing is this easy apply is a whole movement, it almost seems like, for candidates. So I think a lot of organizations are going to have to think about that carefully and think, well, how do we feel about easy apply? And it could be you literally can't embrace it on any level. That's fine, it could be completely outside of your hands. But what I would say is, whatever your situation is now, you can expect it to go backwards in regards to number of applications and stuff, because more and more organizations will accept easy apply. And what I think that will mean is more and more candidates will start to expect it, and you can see the problems. Catherine, that's pretty much it. I guess we're open up for questions now. Or?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Adrian. Can you just move the slide on one, because I know that some people are keen to get your contact details. If you've asked me for Adrian's contact details, there they are. You can contact him. Probably not right now because he's a bit busy, but maybe after the webinar.
Do you know what? My job is not that busy these days. I spend a lot of time talking to people who just want to engage and ask questions. So ask away. Tomorrow I'm riding from Milton Keynes to Manchester on a sponsored bike ride. So tomorrow's going to be a bit challenging, but this afternoon is pretty good.
Okay, fantastic. So we've had 3 people actually ask about the easy apply option. Do you feel that the quality of candidates declines with the introduction of easy apply, or do you think the quality of application reduces because it's becoming easier?
100%. The quality of application will decrease. And the challenge, but that doesn't mean there's not good applicants in there. The challenge for you, so you've almost got to treat, in some cases, you're treating it almost like a lead. I always normally in a workshop now, I'd get people to raise their hand and say, who used to be a recruitment consultant, and a part of today's session is about maybe people wearing a marketing hat, and part of it might be about being a bit more of a proactive recruitment consultant hat as well for some roles. So it could be that you get this CV in, and you have to hop on the phone within 24, 48 hours and speak to that candidate and say, look, you've applied to the role, can I tell you a bit more about it? And maybe don't have that expectation they know everything about your business. if you've set it up correctly, particularly if you thought about your applicant tracking system and they've applied, you can have a very nice post confirmation email. Now, most of the time, the post confirmation emails are pretty standardized. Thanks for applying. This is what's going to happen next, blah, 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 blah. But actually, if you think well, they maybe haven't checked us out too much when they've applied, let's make our post confirmation email that we email them back and say, look, thanks for applying. Let's make that stand out. Thanks for applying. Here's 5 things you may not know about our organization. Here's here's a video of the CEO. Here's put some interesting content in there, and that will help. But I do think you're going to be faced with a lot more candidates that are just a bit more flaky, which is why I don't think it's across the board. You're a software company, Catherine. I'm sure you struggle to recruit software developers and techies. So when the role goes out, we're going to struggle for this. We're not going to get lots of applications. These are very busy, in-demand people. Let's just make it easy, and let's give them the concierge service. So when they apply, if they're a good profile, let's pick up the phone and say, look, hey, wow, thanks for applying, and start the persuade and influence campaign straight away.
Okay, great. We have another question about Easy Apply. What considerations do we have to put in place for accessibility, assisting people with disabilities using the Easy Apply method?
Yeah, to be very honest, I haven't hugely thought about that. I mean, obviously, it is quite easy to apply. The challenge is obviously, I guess, the person saying it, if you're using the government's sort of double tick disability confident employer scheme where you're guaranteeing an interview, then it removes the ability. If they go for your application process, there's probably a question saying, are you disabled? We offer this scheme. Do you would like to apply under this scheme? So all of that gets missed. So hopefully you're hoping the candidate mentions that in their application and then it's picked up. So yeah, there is definitely some issues around this. You can, I suppose, slightly help by putting that in a post confirmation email saying, by the way, if you're a disabled candidate, please do alert us to it, because we have this scheme here. If it's not obvious from your CV, then and you want to apply under a guaranteed interview scheme, then we definitely encourage that. So yeah, it's not without its issues, undoubtedly.
Okay, thanks for that. I have a question from Jill. She asked, when redirecting candidates to a company website to apply, is there a known drop-off of applications rather than just applying where they find the role?
I can talk about ours. So we have a pretty simple application form, about as simple as we can get it. It varies from customer to customer we implement, but ours is about 50%. And people we speak to in the industry tell us that's very good. But I still find it shocking because and we're very transparent and open about our numbers, but it almost feels like we're going to be telling people, we could put out marketing saying, hey, use our system. We only lose half your applicants. But the numbers, I've heard horror stories from speaking to job boards, for example, and they might say, well, we sent the local council 100,000 applicants to their website every month, and then the council tells us how many applicants have applied from given job board, and it's like 2-3%. So it can be crazy numbers, but it's the thing, no one's really talking about it. I always say, if you're an e-commerce manager and someone says, the CEO of the company says, how many people put an item in the checkout basket and then don't complete the purchase, if you're the e-commerce manager and you say, sorry boss, I don't know the answer to that question, you're probably fired on the spot. But the reality is, for people using recruitment systems, many recruitment systems simply don't give out that information. For whatever reason, I've got my own suspicions on some of them, but on reasons why. But yeah, it's just those numbers should be more transparent.
Okay, thanks for picking up that comment. I have a follow-up question about the disability accessibility for applications. So the questioner, Essie, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right, makes the point that inclusion goes deeper than that. If it's not accessible in the first place, candidates can't apply. I mean, that almost feels like it's a question for the job boards, people who run those, in terms of making their websites as accessible as possible for candidates. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the job boards would be pretty good under the accessibility side of things. Obviously, if you're, you know, obviously if you are a blind, let's say you're a blind person, then the chances are you already have, you know, your own software running on your own laptop that, you know, makes, you know, turns websites into Braille and things such as this. So so yeah, I think a lot of that's there. From the inclusion bit's interesting though. I think I've got a webinar that I'm going to be writing up shortly, because I did a talk. I'm now going to turn it into a webinar around technology and around diversity and inclusion. And I think, you know, job boards, you know, pretty fine on that regard. I think the challenge for employers is really that, one, they're seen as, you know, inclusive, and they can evidence it. Really, you know, I should have probably put in a couple of slides around that. We're talking about, you know, that's probably key today. So, so yeah, so it's really about that communication. I think the communication is the key thing, showing that, you know, you are open to, everyone puts like a little equal opportunities bit on their website, but that's become a bit mundane and everyone expects it. But, you know, really showing you're an inclusive employer is very different. So there's lots to be done there. And I actually think, you know, the technology around blind CVs, and that is probably, if you really want to have an impact, that's probably where, you know, you're going to be having an impact and helping partly resolve issues like unconscious bias and things such as this.
Okay, thank you. Esty, I can see that you have more questions on this topic. Can I suggest that you note down Adrian's contact details as they are on the screen, and pick them up with him afterwards separately, because I think there is a lot to be said on this and we have unfortunately run out of time today. So thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. Thank you, Adrian, for sharing your insights. Hopefully everybody's found them really valuable. It's been great to have you with us. If you want to find out more about EasyWeb's products and services, or about Ciphr's HR and recruitment solutions, you can check the box that you'll see on the exit survey when this broadcast ends, and somebody from either of those teams, as relevant, will get back to you. We hope to see you at another Ciphr webinar again soon. Goodbye.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Bye, everyone.